Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Jimmy Dore Show. I have a special guest with us. You've seen him on the show before. It's Jim Cady, and he's a good friend of the show. He's an activist. He's a speaker. He's a guy who puts his money where his mouth is. He's a guy who stood up for the people after the hurricane that hit the northeastern coast. He stood up for the people of New Jersey. He stood up to the governor of New Jersey, Chris Christie, and he's fighter. He's a fighter for the people, and he's running for New Jersey's 4th district in the congressional race. Please welcome back to the show, Jim Cady. Hey, Jim, how are you?
I'm doing well, Jimmy. Thanks for having me on again.
How is your campaign going, Jim?
Campaign is going great. You know, I announced back in late February because I knew what it was going to take to dislodge this Republican that's been in office for 37 years.
Wow.
And for the first 6 months of my campaign, I've been doing the grassroots organizing and activism, something that I've been doing for 20 years. But now we've seen this incredible groundswell of new activists who have come after Donald Trump was elected and have been working with them at the grassroots level on a range of different issues and starting to build political power here. You know, in New Jersey, we're one of 2 states that has statewide races this year. So I've been helping people to shape and mold that energy to push so we can win some seats at the local level, the county level, and at the state level, and the governors went back to the governor's office so that we build the foundation to take back the fighting 4th district in New Jersey for the 2018 congressional race. And now that I've done that 6 months of that grassroots organizing, that I'll continue to do it. But for the next 6 months, I've got a real heavy focus on building the war chest that we're going to need to beat this guy.
So that's what I want to talk to you about today, Jim. You were lamenting another good people are weary to get into this race or get into political life because of how much money you have to spend just purely raising money, which has been an eye-opener for you. Tell us about that. How much time of a day do you have to spend raising money as opposed to going out and actually meeting with the people?
Sure. So when I get up in the morning and, I wake up maybe 6, 7 o'clock, I take care of any personal stuff I got to do, get my daughter to school. When I get back, 9 a.m., my staff is here. I have 2 full-time finance people who are sitting in my home with me, and we're making fundraising calls for as many hours as I can until 8 o'clock at night. And, some days we're able to do that for 7, 8, 9 hours a day. Other times life gets in the way. Like I got to take care of my business that I run. I'm a middle-class, small Main Street business owner. I run a tavern that my family's had for 35 years here in New Jersey. I got to take care of my daughter. I need to do other things like taking care of a home. But every free moment is spent on the phone dialing for dollars. And I don't think people realize if you've never run a race beyond, say, a local council race where you could win it with just pure shoe leather, people do not realize the time that it takes and the energy that it takes to raise the kind of money to be competitive to win a congressional race. And it's a soul suck at times. I'll be very honest. You're on the phone, and the first thing you got to do is do what's called debriefing. So I'm putting together a bunch of call sheets for the day. So we go through my personal contacts, my business contacts, anybody that I've ever kicked a soccer ball with, or any kids that I've ever coached, or when I was a high school teacher, kids that I taught. And you're looking at them, and you're trying to do some research and say, oh, Jimmy and I went to high school together. Yeah, he's running a small business. He's got 2 kids. One's in college, so he might not have too much disposable income. Yeah, maybe we could get him in for a $200 contribution. And then there's a whole script to the ask, and there's the big pause after you make the ask, and it can be uncomfortable. I mean, I've done this before, so you can get into a routine of it. But this is what our democracy, our representative democracy, has become. We're not preparing candidates necessarily to be the best public servants they can be once they get to Congress. It's who's the best at raising money.
So that's what we see in the leadership positions in both parties, is the people who rise to the top aren't actually leaders. They're almost anti-leaders. Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer, they have like a repulsive personality. No one would ever follow that person into a battle, and they wouldn't be leading anyone into a battle. But the reason why they're leaders is because they get the most money from their corporate donors. Chuck Schumer's a darling of Wall Street. Mitch McConnell's a darling of the NRA and the fossil fuels and everybody, right? So, and same thing with Nancy Pelosi, who became a 100-millionaire while she's been serving in Congress, which they're not supposed to do that. So but you're explaining real bleak reality to progressives who think they can get into politics and take it over with a good ideology and great platform, which is what we need. But you're talking about a hard reality that no matter how much shoe leather you put into a congressional race, it is not going to make a dent against somebody who has $1 million. That's what I've heard it takes to run for Congress, Jim, around $1 million, right, to be a viable candidate?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and I'm in one of the most expensive media markets in the country. The 4th district sits in between New York and Philadelphia. So if I wanted to do some significant television buys, you're going into the millions of dollars to want to do that. And, you mentioned about one of the leaders in the party, being a multi-millionaire. More than half the Congress are millionaires. And one of the reasons is, when you think about the commitment that you have to make just for raising money, who's able to do that? I'm lucky that I have the flexibility that I'm running my family's business. I have a really good staff. My mother, who I have to answer to, supports me and is allowing me to take the time and kind of juggle things and do the best I can and run the business and putting as much energy as I can into this race. But, we just had a very solid candidate who was running the primary in New Jersey's 3rd district, which is actually where my tavern is, who had to drop out. And she said she's a civil rights attorney. She has a very strong practice. She said, I can't spend 8 to 10 hours a day just raising money for the next 13 months. I've got a business to run. I have family. And, she was saying, and this is one of the challenges, she said, I'm not even talking about the issues that I wanted to get into politics for in the first place. And this is where I think progressives, we need to have a real reality check. As you said, it can't just be about, grit and ideology. We are at war to win our democracy back. Would I like for us to have publicly funded campaigns and, each person who meets a certain threshold in terms of support gets this much in terms of tax money to run their campaign? Yes, I would love that. But that's not the battlefield that this war is being fought on right now, right? When, people in our armed forces get dropped behind enemy lines, they don't get to say, well, I wish it wasn't so muddy, or I wish these mountains weren't here, or I wish the people weren't shooting at us from over there. You're dropped into the battlefield, you fight to win. So the battlefield that we've been dropped into as progressives is an absolutely corrupt campaign finance system. We've got to work within it so we can build something new in the shell of the old. Right? One of my heroes, my political and religious heroes, is Dorothy Day, the founder of the Catholic Worker. And that was one of her mantras, was about building something new in the shell of the old. If we want to get campaign finance reform, well, we got to help progressives like myself get elected to be able to put that in place. If we want single-payer Medicare for all health care, well, you got to help progressives like me to win these races so that we can have more voices fighting for that stuff on Capitol Hill. I want to spend my time working on the issues that we're passionate about. I'm going to give you a very concrete example. I was on the phone today with a woman from the 4th district. She lives in Manasquan, which is a few towns to the south of me here. Her name is Sheila Blumenstock. Sheila is a Hurricane Sandy survivor. I went over to Sheila's home today, took a picture of it. Now, from the outside, you would say, looks a little beat up. Maybe just the homeowner doesn't have money to put a new coat of paint on. You look inside the windows, the home is gutted to the studs. And it's been that way for almost 5 years. We're coming up on the 5th year anniversary of Hurricane Sandy. And I was on the phone with Sheila today walking through why she still isn't back home yet. She did everything she was told to do by the folks at FEMA. At the state level, the program was called the REM program. Followed all their instructions. She got a contractor they told her to get, and the contractor defrauded her of $50,000 of grant money. So then she's got to jump through a bunch of hoops to try to get that grant money back, because if you don't use that first chunk of grant money properly, you're not going to get the other 2 chunks to help you rebuild. And years with lawyers and different caseworkers and officials from the state. She talked to the head of the DCA. She talked to Lieutenant Governor Guadagno, who's now running for governor, called her on the phone and basically said, well, what do you want me to do? And, she was in tears at me today. She's telling me how in the midst of all this, her best friend and sister developed esophageal cancer and passed away. And she had to spend a big chunk of time being a caretaker for her sister, expending a lot of her savings in the process, doesn't have the money to hire high-powered attorneys and accountants to help her manage this thing, and who's going to be her voice, right? Do you think it's going to be some candidate who is holding, fundraisers where it's $2,700 a pop to get in the door? They're beholden to those big money interests once they get in. If we want somebody like Sheila to have a voice in Washington, D.C., and if you want someone like myself to be that voice, then we as progressives need to pony up. You got to help me to close this gap in terms of financing a campaign so I could spend 8 hours a day getting Sheila back home now. I wouldn't even wait till I got to Congress.
Nope.
Right? And if we want that, right? Jim, the last time I was on your show, the YouTube video got about 50,000 views. And I did have a lot of progressives who got on to jimcady.com and they made those small dollar contributions. And I'm thankful for that. But here's what we need to think about. If progressives around the United States who are watching your show, who watch this video, want a progressive like me to get into Capitol Hill and fight like hell for the things that we're passionate about, I need 50,000 progressives to go to jimcady.com and to make a $20 contribution right now. Now, that could be $20 right out of the gate. It could be $4 on a continual contribution over 5 months. It can be $5 over 4 months. It could be $2 over 10 months. So this is what we need to ask ourselves as progressives. Is it worth $2 a month over 10 months to get somebody like me and other progressives that are running for Congress into office? I think it is. And if we want to get rid of more of those corporate Democrats, and we want people who are getting in for the right reasons, who are going to fight for the right things, we've got to make those $20 contributions. Again, I need 50,000 progressives from around the United States to commit to my campaign, and I know we can win this thing.
So I'm not a math surgeon, Jim, but I'm pretty sure 50,000 times 20, that's $1 million, right?
That is.
Okay, I got it right. All right. So, well, listen, that is, that's some really good insight. Thanks for letting us know how hard it is. I mean, I used to report it that people who ran for Congress lamented they had to spend 4 hours a day on the phone. It turns out it's a lot more. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to other progressives who are finding that out too, that they spend so much time trying to raise money. And so, what do you think? So, what do you think the answer to this is? So it's going to be hard to raise money for progressives. We have to get progressives in government to get rid of this stupid campaign financing system, which really turns our government over to the highest bidder, which is usually rich people, oligarchs, and corporations, right? So that's why both parties in America represent management. That's why half the country is poor or low income. This is why 30 million people still don't have health care and people can't afford college, right? So this is and why we still have 7 wars going on for 16 years. So, and it's all because of money in politics, right? So this is the ironic thing, is that you have to raise money to get elected so you can then enact legislation to get money out of politics. So there's the irony. And so what do you think? Is there another way to do it besides the way you're doing it, Jim?
No. Nope.
Okay.
And look, this is the kind of guy that I am. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to come, try to massage it. No, we got to play on the battlefield that we were dropped in. And we've got to win that battle. And the way we're going to win it, I firmly believe that we have 330 million plus people in our country. There are at least 1 million progressives out there that share our values. Right? You think that's fair to say that there's at least 1 million?
I would say at least. I mean, how many votes did Bernie Sanders get in the primary? I would say at least that many.
Yeah. So, but let's be conservative and let's say 1 million progressives giving $20 each now funded the campaigns of 20 hardcore grassroots bold progressives who can go in and make a hell of a lot of noise on Capitol Hill.
I hear you. I'm with you. That's what we need to do. We need to raise progressive voices. We're going to put a link to Jim's website right there. Go there, help support a progressive, and do it just like Bernie Sanders said. Do it at $27 at a time. And Jim, I don't know if you know why Bernie Sanders chose that $27, because that was his Social Security number. And all right, look, he's got a sense of humor and he's a progressive. How could you not love this guy? He's a real fighter, too. So if you've seen our other videos, if you haven't, go watch the other videos. Jim's life story is unbelievably compelling. He's a guy who puts his money where his mouth is. He was the only guy I know who ever said no to Nike contract because he didn't agree with their labor practices. So this guy's the real deal, and he's a real fighter. So everybody, if you can, go to the link below and let's help support a progressive take over a congressional seat in New Jersey. Jim, any last words for the people?
Well, Jim, one of the things that I hope I can do, as I mentioned to you as we were exchanging messages over the last couple of days, tomorrow morning I am leaving at about 5 a.m. to go to Puerto Rico to help with the recovery efforts there. And when I get back, I'd love to come back on the show and share what's going on the ground. I mean, the stuff that I'm getting from the contacts that we have on the ground, we're going to be walking into a really uncomfortable situation.
Okay.
Having survived Hurricane Sandy and saw the destructive force of Sandy and what it did to New Jersey, and marrying that with the work that I did in 2015 and 16 on the front lines of the Syrian refugee crisis, I think we're going to see those two kinds of crises be melded together in what's happening in Puerto Rico. And this is why, we have our president this morning on CNN, saying that the Puerto Ricans need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. FEMA can't be there forever. These are 3.4 million American citizens that we have left. I shouldn't say that. We have put some resources in, but it's not the same as if there was that kind of damage in New York City and New Jersey, in some stronghold where Trump had a base of support. You can bet there would have been more resources brought to bear in a much quicker way. We still have 90% of the island is without electricity. I heard today in a report that people are so starved for water that they are starting to drink water from contaminated Superfund sites because they're that desperate. So we're going to go down, a team of us. It's myself and another guy who's running for the state legislature here who lives in the 30th district, which is part of the congressional 4th, and 4 or 5 other guys. And we're going to do what we can for a few days. And then I want to bring those stories back. And this is why it's so important, I believe, for people who serve in Congress and who want to serve in Congress to do these kinds of trips. Because if we're going to be voting on policies that are going to help with the immediate crisis, we need to know what's going on. If we're going to be voting on policies about how we are going to try to mitigate the destructive forces that we've unleashed through climate change, we got to see what's happening on the front lines. And we've got to be educated about the human stories and the struggles that are happening with our fellow Americans. And that's the kind of approach that I've always brought to the social justice work that I've done. And when I've served at the local level and city council here in New Jersey in the city of Asbury Park, I always try to go to the front lines where the real stuff is happening and then bring that back onto the dais or onto in this case, hopefully come 2019, the floor of the House, so that I can be advocating for everyday people that do not have a voice in Washington, D.C. We got enough people down there that are advocating for the billionaires and the giant corporations. It's time that working families had a real voice on Capitol Hill, and I want to fight to do that. I need all the progressives watching this to kick in that 20 or 27 bucks to help me to do it, and then to share this video like crazy so that we get millions of dollars in. And I will commit to this, Jim. If we start to get millions of dollars into the Cady for Congress campaign from progressives all across the country, you can bet the ranch that I'm going to help to fund some other progressives campaigns because I don't want to be down there alone.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that sounds great, Jim. Thanks for coming on the show. Jim Cady, he's a brass-knuckled brawler progressive, and he needs your help to take over that seat in New Jersey. So go do it. Jim Cady, thanks for being our guest.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Bye-bye. Portland, Oregon, the Jimmy Dore Show is coming to the Alberta Rose Theater November 12th, and we're going to Burbank, California, November 6th, and the Hollywood Improv on October 16th. There's a link for tickets right down there. Go to jimmydoorecomedy.com for all links for all shows.